So sagt more of a common begimus of Mizbeach, Kedei Shetach Korba Tzipoirim, which is exactly the same shear of a pagam to passel a chalaf. Toys asks Akashi, if that was the case, how did they build the Mizbeach? Heich Bonam Mizbeach. The Ono Yimtzu Anovim below Pagima. Where are you going to find perfectly smooth stones that don't have a single jagged edge on them? Now, you can't suggest that they should smooth it out using steel kalim because Iki Yisura in Barzo. So you're going to say that the shamir, that snail, worm, whatever it was, that wouldn't work either. But let remember now Ayidei Shamir, the Al-Korgach Ayidei Shamir lo yiu chawakais shaletach ben ativar. Tosh brings a right from the Gemara that the shamir, even though it cut rocks, it didn't cut them so smoothly that there wouldn't be any jagged edges. So I'm just skipping to the bottom of the places. V'yeshloimar the beperik ezim l'kaimun mashma shabanu oisam v'avonim ktanois chavakais, small, smooth stones, shalehaya behem shum pegima, they didn't have a pegam, kigoyin chalukei avonim shal nachal. You know, when we used to be kids, we used to like skip the stones across the water. That's like a wheel, they're smooth, flat stones. That's what they built the Mizbeach out
of. Stones,
but they're good basic for to be make stones.
so you could put on rocks. Oh,
So those stones are very, very smooth.
smooth. So they could have been put on. They could have been what maybe do it for the Beit Mikdash.
They're like pebbles.
No, they're larger actually. They're larger pebbles. Those ones.
Oh, those ones.
Yeah. So up to the more Vaitik. Meisvei. Kama pagimis hamizbeach. How much of a pagam is a pagam for the mizbeach? That would passel. It has to be a tefach. That's a lot bigger than Kedei Shetach Kabotzi Part. But let's be not about Kazayis. So tomorrow Lakash Habasida Haba. If it's in the Sid has much bigger cracks. But if it's on the stone itself, there even the smallest little pagam is a problem. Amar Huna. Hi Tafchad Loisar Sakina Kamechacham. What if you have a butcher, a little bit balagaibadik, and he's I'm not showing my knife to the chacham. I know what I'm doing. The lachid mishamtina la, you put him at the chayyim. For Rav Amar me'avrinon le, you close the store down. Umachrizinon abisrei the trefi. They put out a whole memo. This store is treif. It's smash burger. You're not allowed to shop there. The loy pligi, and it's not a machoikas. Kan b'shenimta sakina yafa. If they were buying a sakin and it turned out being a good sakin, then they only put him in the chayyim because he didn't show respect to the Rav. Kan b'shaloi nimta sakina yafa. Here when they didn't find the sakin yafa. It's very important to note, the Ritva speaks out. It's not kan b'shenimta sakinoi lo yafa. It doesn't mean you checked his knife and you found that it wasn't good. No. You just didn't find his knife. Maybe he misplaced his knives. So you didn't find the fair sharpness, you just weren't able to locate his knife. Ravina Amar, if they couldn't find that he had good knives, they would do more than just announce that his basar is treif and you're not allowed to eat it. They would want to prevent him because of this big avla. They would want to prevent him from even being able to sell his meat to goyim. So you know what they would do with it? Memash mislei beparsa. They would take feces of an animal and smear it all over his meat. In other words, vandalize and destroy his meat that he wouldn't be able to sell to anybody. Why? It's a knas, because he is bucking the requirement to show Torah. There was a butcher who did not show respect to Rabbi Rachina. So Shamta, he put him into Chayim, the Avrei, and he closed the butcher store down. The Achiv Abisrei the Trefi. Basically, Rabbi Rachina put this person out of business. Ikloi Marzutra Varavashi Lagabe. Marzutra and Ravashi came to visit Rabbi Rachina. Amalah, who told him, Li'anu Rabbi Bil Milsei, the Tolu Betifli. He told him, I want you to try to analyze the scenario. Maybe you could find the Salim Chus. Because even though I put them into Chayim, I'm very uncomfortable with it. I had to do it because that's Allah. But I'm very uncomfortable with it because he has a family, he has children. and now I destroyed his main means of prognosis. So please see what you can find for him. Rav Ashi went and was biting a sakin, and it turned out that the sakin was good. And he tore down the sign that said treif, and he said, this is kosher under the hesher of Rav Ashi. Amalei Marzutra, so Marzutra told Rav Ashi, you're just going to overrule what the Rebbe did? That shut him down? Amalei didn't overrule him. He instructed us to find a way to allow this fellow to get back into business. So he knew what he wanted us to do. I'm just doing what I was instructed to do. Amar Rabba Barhuna, Shein Talusha, if you have a loose tooth, loose means not shaky, it means it's
Detached.
Detached. V'tziparim Talusha, muter lishchaypa, lichatchila. It seems in those days they couldn't just go to Canadian Tire and buy a new knife. Things were, or they couldn't go to I forgot what's the name of Mrs. Steinmetz's store. Kitchener to buy a knife. The utensils were hard to come by, so they can use these to shech with. Aiva nantnan chutz minagol ktsir v'amigira v'shinayim v'tziparim. So you see, the Mishnah says you shouldn't use shinayim v'tziparim. Nation chaykin, because they have jagged edges and they're going to make chadika on the animal. So to Moshe Hashem lekasha habachad hadu b'tarti. If you have one big tooth, that can be smooth. You can cut with it. You can check with it. But if you're using two teeth, for sure, there's a jagged edge. A nail that's detached, you can check with. A nail that's still connected to whatever it grew off is you're not allowed. You should not check with. You might ask, why didn't the Gemara say the same text with Shein like Kasha? So that's Tosh's Kasha. Tosh's got B'Shein have a much l'shnei hachi. Ela mishum de b'masnisim tani v'shinayim tuti the mashma trei shem hachanami mukila v'tlushin upsulin v'pnei shen chayim. Since Belt says two, it must be the assumption is that they're loose and detached. Not sure why. What can it be in a jar? Zok the head of the Mishnah Vayter. Hashoichet b'magol ktsir. A magol ktsir, we learned, is like it's a saw, but it's not a saw whose blade teeth come up in the center like this. Rather, the blade is very much like this. So when you're pushing this way, it cuts. When you're pulling, it's a very smooth surface.
It's a picture.
Oh, there's a picture there as well? I don't have a picture, so.
Well, you won't find there a picture.
No, I don't have a picture here, but maybe here's a picture.
These are a picture in art school. Yeah, it's pointing towards the handle.
Right. So this way, when you in one direction, it's really not going to be an issue at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
So
picture shows that the jagged edges point towards the handle.
right. Okay. So Zok Gemara b'derech halichasa v'shamei poislin u'beisil machshir. So we know why beisil is machshir, because it's not cutting. The mechliku shina harei kizak, and if you smooth it all out, then it's going to be like a regular knife. Right? Remember, we even learned that if it's wavy, the surface of the knife, because you smooth out the gimmos, that's still fine. He doesn't allow you to eat this meat. He's just saying that it won't be a nevela, it won't be tony. It's muduyak from the Mishnah, from the Lashon Mishnah. The Gatani Beishamai Poislin Ubeisil Machshirin. What do you mean Poislin? It should have said Beishamai Oishin Ubeisil Matirin. Oyster to eat, matter to eat. Elamai, you see that the discussion is not talking about whether you're allowed to eat it, it's whether or not the Shechita is kosher or not, Lagabe Tumas Nevel. Zok to Gemara Ulatemeich, listed Beishamai Mitamin Ubeisil Matirin. If that's what it's all about, then that's what it should say. Ella Poislin Machshirin V'Oishin Matirin Chadamilsi. You don't have a right from our Mishnah. Yes, you wanted a time that Basil only was Machshir at the time of the Nevela. That might be true, but it's not muchach like that in the Mishnah at all. Zok to Gemara Vayter. Beishamai poisels because he's afraid that you're going to use it in the opposite direction. So that's therefore apostles because if we let you use it in one direction, you might also use it in the opposite direction. So there's pictures of real live animals here, but there's also the diagrams are actually quite more clear. But I'm going to use this because Shelley finds a still this shoot for the shear, which we have to use it. So this here is the end of the cover. Just to give you a better look at what the whole cover looks like, it looks like this. So here's your windpipe, and there's something called a tabas, which we'll discuss, and then there is the kamin koivat, the helmet. And the way this is positioned in the animal, you can see over here. This is the cow. The windpipe is lower, so it's towards the surface of his neck, and that funny piece there is how it connects, I guess, to his jaw, where the head would connect to the windpipe. So let's see what it says here. Hashoichet mitoich hatabas v'shayir bo mole achut al pnei kulo shchitas u'ksher. Now, the Gemara, this particular Shechita holds that all of the length of the windpipe of the kodet, you could see it has the rings in it, but you could see the rings don't totally go around the whole neck. Rather, if you could see the cross section, the ring is almost like a horseshoe, but here there is no ring. But the top ring, which is a much bigger ring, which is this over here, it's called the tabas hagdoila, that goes around the whole neck. That doesn't just stop. That's not like a bangle. It's like a full bracelet. That's what this is like. So the Mishnah is saying that this is the uppermost portion of the neck that you could shecht in. There's a zone in the neck. What area of the neck can you shecht in? The uppermost zone is the tabas hagdoila, and as long as there's a sliver of tabas hagdoila on the head side, that means you were in the tabas hagdoila. That means it will be a good shechita. Because if your knife went out of the tabas hagdoila, then you were out of the zone. It wouldn't be a good shechita. That's what our Mishnah is saying. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Hashoichet mitoich hatabas, meaning that big tabas, the one that fully wraps around. V'shar bo molay achut al pnei kulo. And there's at least a sliver of tabas above of this cartilage material, above the slice towards the head.
That's where you're supposed to aim the tabas.
We're going to see where you're supposed to aim. That's a very complicated child over here. I had a very hard day. I thought it would be easy to prepare, but there's a help. Rashi says quite clearly, you could be anywhere from the questions, the upper end, those who hold you to check way higher than the tabas down to the lungs. It could be anywhere in there. So no, it doesn't have to be the tabas. Although there are shitas in the Rishonim about shitas in the Gemara that maybe you do have to not check the tabas. So there's a lot of discussion. I'm going to try to throw out the different sheets. We'll learn one pshat going through it, which will be Rashi's first pshat. Rashi has 3 pshatim, and the Tosfos argues with Rashi about which is a favorite pshat. So I'll just try to throw out some of the options. But for now, we're learning that Rashi says quite clearly, I'll just point it out to you. In Rashi says very clearly, the ein chiluk makoim b'soich hakana bein toich tabas la'avish bein tabas lebas u'tzotay b'tabas ha'gdoila. I'll get into the details of what that means shortly. And he says over here, Minat Abbas v'at hareya. With the Ketani Minat Abbas v'at hareya shema mina v'tabas kedola shirishayna ka'amar, and from the Tabas until the Reya is the zone in which you could check. That's what Rashi says. The variations are going to be this halacha. There's two different variations. This halacha that if you check from the top tabas, you have to leave a sliver above it, which means you're in the tabas, not out of the zone. That's in the tabas hagdoila. What about in the other tabas? Right? What if you check lower down? Do you have the same halacha? So that's where there's a shayla. Rashi says if you check later down, it shouldn't matter at all. Shouldn't matter at all if you're in the tabas, out of the tabas, because you're as long as you're within the zone between the tabas and the lungs, you're in the zone, right? The issue here wasn't leaving the tabas and the issue here was leaving the zone in where you could do the shechita. But Rashi does bring a shita that he strongly disagrees with, that this problem will be a problem in every single one of the rings. You can't go out of the ring. So the Shechita could be called the Lord of the Rings. Sorry, I couldn't continue. So let's get more about it. So Shechita mitoich katabas shayir b'molech chut al pnei kul shidos kshir. Rabbi Yosy Rabbi Yehuda Omer molech chut al pnei ruba. You have to have roiv of the shechita was in the zone. At the end of the shechita, if you go out of the zone, but you've already shechted the roiv of the siman in the zone, that'll be good shechita. What you see from here is a huge chiddush in the Tanna Kama. Because the Tanna Kama says, how much of a siman do you have to shecht? Roiv. So even if I shechted roiv of the siman within the right zone, and then afterwards I went out of the zone, so I had already shechted roiv the siman, that will pass. That's a big kiddush because it's not already, yet it'll still pass. So to Gemara, Rav Shmuel Davar Tabayu, Halachik Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda that even roiv is enough, but here's a bombshell. He says this only applies in the tabas hagdoila. You cannot Rashi learns twice as long. Rashi learns you're not allowed to shech at all in the other tabois. So you're only allowed to shech in the tabas hagdoila, which was what he suggested. But shar tabois loy. The reason for it is, we'll see Rashi, is because since they don't go around the whole thing, you're going to have a problem. But you can check in between the tabois, right? The kana is textured. So these are the individual tabois. You can't cut in the tabas itself, because it doesn't go around the whole neck, but you can cut in between. Now, I don't know how in the world you could aim to get in between. I don't know how you would do that. You have to be a very skilled choichid, but that's what Rashi says. So let's have a quick look at Rashi. Now if you go out, you cannot check. The only place where it's safe to check is in the big tabas or in between the tabas. And the big tabas and tabas is where you should check. The keeping, in not keeping, eskola kana kilapricious, shiritzuas habosim mechabrasan lav kana. They're not a kana. Those tabas are not considered a kana. Even though they do wrap around roiv of the kana, they don't completely enclose it. Here's a very good case. Rabbi Yosy held a rubai kakulai. We've established that. In the tabas hagdoila, if you shechted roiv in the right zone, it's a kosher shechita, even though later on you departed from the zone. So Rabbi Yosy held a rubai kakulai. But that's hanamili the makom shechita. If you're in the right zone, the shachat ruba, and you made roiv of the siman you shechted in the right zone. Lahal mills are in the ruba kakula. So even if you make a grum and you leave the right zone at the end of the shechita, it will still be kosher. Aval the shabi mokim kosher the shechita mishum high time lo yamrini ruba kakula. You can't say that the other rings are also a good place for shechita because they surround roiv of the kana. It's as if they surround the whole kana. You don't say that. You say ruba kakula, once you have a kosher zone, you only have to shecht the roiv of the siman. But to say that this is a kosher zone to shecht it due to a roiv, that Rabbi Yosy, Rabbi Yehuda would not say. Tabas lo yikri kana. The tabas is not considered kana. You have to shecht the kana. The tabas is not a kana. B'dik amar she'ein makifin eskola kana shmami no krum shebeteicha tabas hamachas oisim b'fnim mikri kana. I'm struggling with another thing that I didn't understand. That is, clearly Rashi says there's a krum shebeteicha tabas hamachas oisim b'fnim. That's the kana, and the tabas wraps around the kana. If you're cutting the tabas, how are you not going to cut the kana too? Sure, the shechita of the tabas itself will work, but when you're cutting that, you're also cutting through the inner lining too, right? So I'm not sure. The tabas itself is not the shechita, but the knife is still cutting the siman. So that was very difficult that they had to do this Rashi. But I'll call upon them. Rashi is saying that based on what Rav and Shmuel are saying in Rabbi Yehuda, you wouldn't be able to shecht in any of the tabois, only the top one, because that's a full tabas that it covers the corner, and the rest of the neck you'd have to shecht in between the tabois. Zok the Gemara with shar tabois one. Are you telling me that Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda holds you can't check the shar tabois? But Tanya Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda said, "Ashoichei, if someone checks." If you check the other tabois, as Rashi's kol hakana, aroy kololoi, avapi she'ei makivois es kol hakana, even if they don't wrap around the whole kana, ha'elu makivois es roy hakana shchitasik sheira. So this is a clear brisa that tells us that Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda disagrees with Rav and Shmuel's portrayal of what he said. Now, on another note, the brisa talks about some other things. Umugremes psula. The brisa tells us umugremes psula, which Rashi explains to us means afilu ruba b'seichat tabas umiuta l'mayla mitabas agdoila. It will be possible, and that's zokt Rashi. That's not even Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda. That's umilsa b'ampinavshi ustamihi rabbanim kamila. So that's just the brisa not going in Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda. Then hey Reb Chanina ben Antigonus. This is who we paskin like. Al mugremes ksher. He holds that a mugremes is ksher. They can't hold the mugremes is ksher. We learned it's one of the 5 tefillah shechita, agrama. So what does Rabbi Yosy, what does Reb Chanina ben Antigonus means when he says mugremes is ksher? So Rashi, sorry, al mugremes is ksher. Ba'afilu kula l'maylo in the tabas agdoila. He holds that the zone of the shechita extends above the area of the tabas agdoila. That the Torah said there's a psul of agrama, it's not if you're north of the Tabas and Doila. You can be way north of that. You can even be in the area north of the Tabas and Doila, which is Mishuba Kaiba Lamaila Agmara Kidlakaman. So we pass in like Rab Chanina ben Antigonus, Rashi says, and first I'll look at the diagram and then we'll look at the picture. So here's the Tabas and Doila. And this is called the Shipur Kaiva. Now, from where you can see the Kaiva is at full diameter of the kana, where it connects to the Tabas and Doila, but as it gets into the jaw, it tapers. From where it tapers, that's where it will be out of the zone. So in this area of the Shipur of the Kaiva, you can also still shecht. So Chanina ben Antigonus is saying he's extending the zone to shecht way up over here. Which is how we custom, I believe. Rashi said that's what custom. Because it says Kol Edus is halachi. Okay, there's no more about it. Amar Rav Yosef. So we have a steer over here. Rav and Shmuel said very clearly that Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda said that you cannot check with other tabois. Yet we have a brisa that says first in Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda that you could check b'shar tabois. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda Tartik Amar. Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda held that say if you shecht roiv in the tabas and meet out, that would be kosher. You go what's right, but he also said that a tabas that wraps roiv around the corner is also a tabas where you could shecht it. And Rabbi Shmuel said not like that. Dr. Gemara, Rabbi Yosy said 2 halachas. Rabbi Shmuel sarbi kavasa bechada. They hold like him that if you're in a good tabas, you only have to shecht roiv within the tabas. But they argue on Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda's halacha that you could even shecht in any of the other tabois because he says because it's wrapped around roiv, they say it's not good enough. Frankly, you cannot say that that's what it means. You can't say Rabbi Shmuel or argue on him. Look at how Rabbi Shmuel expressed it. Halacha Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda. And then they said, Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda loy omer ela b'tasek doila. They're clearly saying that this is Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda talking. It's not them arguing on Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda. So Rabbi Yosef, how could you tell me that Rabbi Shmuel agree with Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda in one halacha and argues with him in another halacha? They're clearly saying that this is Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda talking. Zok to Gemara, how could you say that? Loy omar karmi. They said loy omar Rabbi Yosy ben Yehuda. So they weren't saying their own shita. So they were. Mention a little bit. Halacha gemaisa b'tabas and ben halacha gemaisa b'shar tabois. So Rashi says it's he didn't say it, meaning what he said is worth it. It doesn't count. Even though he said that you could check another boys, that doesn't count. And garnish gedot. Don't even listen to him. As Rashi says, the Haiti coming to Hachi, Mashmo Yom Klub, but it gesot, nicht gedot. It connects to the not. It's not called speaking, it's not valid. Zok to Gemara. Kisalak Reb Zera. When Reb Zera went up there to Yisrael, Achal Mugremes, the Rav Ushmur. He ate what was considered Hagrama of Rav Ushmur, meaning he ate from a Shechita, where the Shechita was done, the one of the other rings. Amr Lester told him, Lav Mayatri to Rav Ushmur, don't you stop from the city where Rav Ushmur is from, meaning you should follow the Psak, you shouldn't be eating this Shechita. Amalu, he told him back, Man Omra, who was the one who said that Rav and Shmuel argue? Yosef Bar Chia, right? Because who said the third? Rabbi Yosef you did Tartik Omer. Rav Shmuel, so that was all Rabbi Yosef, and he knew it was Rabbi Yosef Bar Chia. Guess what? Yosef Bar Chia Mikula Al Megomer. He heard Torah from everybody. He moved around. So it could be he mixed up a little bit, and maybe Rav and Shmuel never said that you cannot check it. Maybe he was mistaken in his quoting of Rav and Shmuel. Shom Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef heard that Reb Zera discounted what he said. He probably made a mistake. He probably wasn't, didn't remember who said what. Ikbit. He was very mad. He said, I know exactly what I'm saying. Amar, I know, Mikula Amal Gamirna. You think I learned from everybody? No. I have an exclusive Rebbe who I follow. I know Rabbi Yehuda Gamirna. And Rabbi Yehuda was so makbid on saying things, delivering things accurately, that I'm also makbid. So don't tell me that my repeating of what Rav and Shmuel said is not accurate. The Gavrei Garis. He will even mention if it was a suffix. For instance, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Abba, Savik Mishmei de Rav, Savik Mishmei de Shmuel. So you see when Rabbi Yehuda is saying over halacha, and he heard it from Rabbi Yirmiyah, and he wasn't sure if Rabbi Yirmiyah heard it from Shmuel or if Rabbi Yirmiyah heard it from Rav, he speaks it out. I heard it from Rabbi Yirmiyah, but I'm not sure who Rabbi Yirmiyah heard it from. So you see, he's very meticulous in clarifying everything that he says. He pays attention to detail. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Rav and Shmuel holds that this shechita is not good, and you, Rav Zera, are eating from it. Zog to Gemara. What was the halacha that Rabbi Yehuda was talking about? Shloisha matir nes habechor b'makom shein b'mukha. What if you don't have a mukha to examine the bechor to see if it has a mukha? Any three people could do it. If it's a mum that it doesn't require a lot of analysis, it's an obvious mum. So up to Gemara, Reb Zera lesnei noisna lo chumrei makom sheyot misham v'chumrei makom shalach lojam. Could be where he went to Eretz Yisrael, there were makbid. In Babel, by Rav and Shmuel, they were makbid. But isn't there a halacha that whenever you go from place A to place B, you have to take upon yourself the chumras of place A and place B? So just because he went to Eretz Yisrael, and now in Eretz Yisrael they ate from a shechita in the rings, how can he eat from it? Shouldn't he still have to retain the chumras that he had from where it came from? Abaye, when do you say that? Hanimili mi Babel leBabel leEretz Yisrael leEretz Yisrael. Inami Eretz Yisrael leBabel. There you have to retain. If you went from Eretz Yisrael to Babel, you have to retain the chumras that you had from Eretz Yisrael. Only Babel Eretz Yisrael. But if you're going from Babel to Eretz Yisrael, where Eretz Yisrael is far more superior, we force everything upon Babel. What do you mean? Rashi says, because we're Mekadosh the Chodesh. We determine, us the Eden Eretz Yisrael determine when everything is. As Rashi says, we're the boss. We'll do the Knossos because there's no Slicha in Chutzlaretz. So we're dominant. Therefore, if you're going from Babel to Yisrael, you do have a right to abandon the chumras of Babel because Eretz Yisrael is dominant. Rav Ashi Omar, afilu tema mi Babel Eretz Yisrael, you still have to keep your old chumras. Hanami lehechet dat yalachsa. The only time you have to keep the chumras of the place that you left is if you're planning one day to return. Reb Zera ain't dat yalachsa hava. Reb Zera was never planning to go back to Babel. Omer lei Abaye, Reb Yosy. Abaye told Reb Yosy, the whole Rabbanon, the Osam of Mechuzah. But the Rabbanon who came from Mechuzah, Amri they said, Aleph, Amri Mishmei Reb Nachman, It said in the name of Reb Nachman, Mugremes Kshera. They said Mugremes is Kshera. What did they mean by Mugremes? Exactly this. Zot Rashi, Mugremes Kshera, Mugremes to Rabu Shmuel Kshera. Va'onu mibavel naginan be'isura. So the problem is they said in the name of Reb Nachman that it's Kshera. So what I don't understand is even from Babel it's kosher. So you're saying Rabbi Shmuel holds in Babel it's possible. Reb Nachman said it's kosher. So is it kosher in Babel or is it not? What are the other fears of Babel? Just like a river flows into all its subsidiaries and goes in different directions, as there's place for it to go, so too when it comes to minhagim and halacha, each area, each city, each chassidus can take on their own chumras, and that's a normal thing. And therefore, it's possible that Rav and Shmuel's area did not approve of such a shechita, yet Reb Nachman did. But soon you could already see the politic in shechita was already in the Gemara's times. Reb Shimon ben Lakish Achsher Bechuda the Kuva. He said that it's even more to the shet where it goes down. Remember we said that the Chanina and Tignan, he held it's a wide part of the piece on top. But once it starts to taper, you can't check there. While Rish Lakish was Machshir Shechita even where it's tapering. Even when it's tapering down, he was Machshir Shechita. Karya lay Rabbi Yochanan Gisa Gisa. That's already too much. The side of what Gisa Gisa means either that's too much or it means my brother-in-law, how can you do this? In other words, that's a little bit pushing the envelope to allow Shechita so far north. Amar Pavi Mishvei Derava. Haga Bechiti Treifa. Now there's two little nodules inside the base of Shechita. You can see them where the kalvud. He takes the vocal cords in there. So where in the throat are these things? They're actually in this kaiva. They're in this kaiva that we're talking about in this zone. So if you ended up cutting those vocal cords, that means up to Gemara you're too high. Paga b'chiti treifa, that means you're too high already. Ibaylu, does it mean paga v'noga ben? When it says paga, does it mean that you actually cut them? That means you're very high already into the vocal cords. And that's not a kosher shechita. The chsiv v'yifka boy v'yamas. So you see, pigia means you're touching the guy. Oidam paga just means you meet it from a distance, but you're not actually touching it. Paga v'loy naga the chsiv v'yifka boy malach elakim. So the question really is, does the knife have to slice through it to be possible? Or what if the knife didn't slice through the vocal cords, it sliced right under the vocal cords, but it touched the vocal cords? Is that also too high? Is that also out of the zone of Shechita? Zok to Gemara. Even if part of the vocal cords are left on the north side of the cut, that would be kosher. So clearly he's saying that Paga v'naga would be kosher. Even Paga v'naga would be kosher as long as some part of the vocal cords remains on the north side. So we're learning here shitas and shechita that are like very, very, very north, which allow shechita very close up to the top. Amar Rav Meimar Bar Mar Yenuka. When I was a little child, Hamkimna Kamei the Rabchia already about you. I was standing in front of Rabchia about you. Well, Amarli, he told me Shayir Bechiti Kshera. And even if the knife sliced through the vocal cords, but some of the vocal cords were left north of the cut, that would still be a kosher zone for shechita. So that's way to the north. Amalei Rabbeinu Ravashi, Amalei Rab Shaman Misuvra, Ikloi Marzutra Lash, and Marzutra once came to our city. The Darash Nidashin as follows: Shayir Bechiti Kshera, which is a very big kula, meaning you could check all the way up, even if you're slicing through the vocal cords. Mar Ravashi Amar Paga Bechiti Kshera, Shayir Bechiti Treifa. If the knife touched the vocal cords from below, but it didn't cut them, then you're still low enough that you're in the zone and it's a good shechita. But if you were shy of shechita, means you left some over, meaning you sliced it, that would mean you shechted too high out of the zone. The hilchasa mishipui koiva ulamata sheira, from where that extra piece above the tabas starts to taper from there and lower, from there to the south, it's kosher. And that's what Rashi says. Before that extra piece starts to taper down, that's still considered in the zone of Shechita. But once that connection from the cornet to the jaw, once you reach the point where it's tapering down, that's no longer in the zone. The Hanu the Shar Bechiti, and that happened to be the same place as the Shar Bechiti. So meaning, if you're Shar Bechiti, you're going to be possible. Shar Bechiti Rash Klemek about the upper Shar Bechiti Kshera. Forget it. So Shar Bechiti means even if you cut so far north that you cut into the vocal cords, but you're still right before the kind of tapers down, it's still going to be a kosher shechita. The more it says the hilchos, I guess that's how we paskin will be mamshech by the Shem tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Just go ahead.